So, India just made this huge, multi-billion-dollar decision, and America is furious. Russia, on the other hand, is celebrating. What's all the fuss about? Well, at the heart of it is an arms deal that could literally reshape global power. We're talking about more than just military hardware here. This is a story about national pride, about economic warfare, and about the massive tectonic shifts happening in our world right now.
Okay, let's start with the number that kicked this whole thing off. $5.43 billion. Now, you have to understand this isn't just the price tag on a weapons system. For India, this number became the cost of defiance. It was the price of standing up to a superpower and deciding to forge its own path in a world that is getting more and more complicated.
And that leads to the big question, right? The US is a really important ally for India. So why on earth would they risk a massive, damaging trade war over one single purchase? To really get it, we need to peel back the layers and see what was truly at stake for everyone involved.
All right, let's set the scene. This was anything but a quiet disagreement behind closed doors. Nope, this was a full-blown public standoff. At the center of it all, one of the most advanced pieces of military tech in the world, and a controversial US law that was specifically created to stop deals exactly like this from ever happening.
So this is the hardware in question, the S-400 Triumph. And let me tell you, it's not just another missile system. This thing is a total game changer. The best way to think about it is like a giant, impenetrable defensive bubble. It can shoot down pretty much anything you throw at it, from stealth jets to ballistic missiles. For India, getting their hands on this wasn't just a simple upgrade. It was a massive strategic leap.
And on the other side, here's the weapon the US decided to use, CAATSA. It's a law basically designed for one purpose: to punish any country that makes a significant defense deal with America's rivals, especially Russia. And this wasn't an empty threat. The US had already brought the hammer down on Turkey, a NATO ally, mind you, for buying this exact same S-400 system. The message couldn't have been clearer. If you buy this, there will be consequences.
But India's response, it was incredibly firm. I mean, listen to this quote. The bluntness is what's so striking here. India's defense minister at the time, Nirmala Sitharaman, basically drew a line in the sand. She was making it crystal clear that a U.S. law has zero authority over India's sovereign right to make its own national security decisions, period.
So the US didn't come back with more talks, they came back with raw economic force. They slapped a devastating 50% tariff on key Indian goods. This was no warning shot, this was a direct attempt to cripple major parts of the Indian economy, all to force them to cancel the deal.
And here's where it gets real. You can see the impact right here. We're talking about $60 billion in trade getting hit. And it's not just an abstract number. In places like Tirupur, which is a huge textile hub, orders from big US companies just stopped. The factories went silent. People lost their jobs. This economic pressure was very, very real, and it was designed to hurt.
So you've got all this immense pressure. But India, they didn't blink. So why not? Well, the answer really boils down to three things: price, power, and, you guessed it, pride.
First up, let's talk price. I mean, just look at the numbers. The choice is pretty clear, right? The Russian S-400 costs less than half of the American Patriot system, and even the individual missiles are about half the price. But here's the kicker. It's not just cheaper, it's actually better. It has a way longer range. So it was just a better deal all around, both financially and in terms of what it can do.
Okay, second reason. This deal was about so much more than just buying a weapons system off the shelf. It was about learning to build them. This slotted perfectly into India's huge national project called Make in India. The whole idea is to transform the country from being one of the world's biggest buyers of weapons into a defense manufacturing powerhouse.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The deal was a catalyst. See, Russia didn't just sell them the hardware and walk away. They agreed to transfer the technology. That's huge. It meant India could start setting up its own production lines for other weapons, like rifles. This directly feeds that ambition to go from being a top importer to a major exporter.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, pride and principle. There's this core idea in Indian foreign policy called strategic autonomy. Basically, it means India will be friends with everyone, the US, Russia, you name it, but they won't be tied down in an exclusive alliance with anyone. They choose their partners based on what's best for India, not because someone is pressuring them. And this S-400 deal? It was the ultimate test of that whole philosophy.
So what happened after the dust settled? What were the consequences? Well, this one deal,
didn't just stay between India and the US. Oh no, it sent ripples all across the globe. It was like an accelerator for trends that are totally reshaping the world order as we know it.
Now, it's really important to remember that India isn't doing this in a vacuum. They're a key player in the BRICS group of nations, and if you look at the numbers, this bloc represents a huge chunk of the world's population and its economy. This creates a whole different center of power, which gives countries like India the backup they need to push back against pressure from the West.
And you know what? India's strategy is paying off, big time. Just look at this chart showing the explosive growth in their defense exports. Thanks to policies like Make in India and these tech transfer deals, the country's quickly turning into a serious player in the global arms trade. And this number? This is what the U.S. stands to lose. It's the opportunity cost. India is projected to spend over $400 billion on defense in just a few short years. By trying to force India's hand with sanctions, American companies are now at risk of being completely locked out of one of the biggest and fastest-growing defense markets on the planet.
And in the end, it turns out India's big, controversial gamble paid off. The S-400 system was put to the test in a real conflict, and it worked exactly as promised, knocking down real-world threats. That success on the battlefield didn't just prove the purchase was a smart move. It was also the best advertisement you could ask for as India starts to sell its own military tech.
So, when you look back, this $5.4 billion deal was about so much more than just missiles. It was really a declaration of independence. It was a sign that the world is shifting, away from one single superpower to a world with many. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. Are we witnessing the end of an era? An era where just one country gets to call all the shots in the global arms trade? The answer to that is going to shape global security for decades.